we expand on the rise of an English nation-state. As the Middle Ages progressed, Germanic tribes, Vikings, and the invaders of the Roman Empire battled each other for the supremacy of certain regions. Feudalism, castle building, manorialism, trade. The tense relationship between rulers and the Pope began to define boundaries known as nation-states. As feudalism expanded landholdings, city-states and manors merged into large kingdoms ruled by a central monarch with a national identity, called nation-states. One of the nation-states that would make a huge impact was England. It started as a collection of Germanic tribes known as the Angles and the Saxons, who'd moved into Britannia as Rome collapsed. The region known as England was unified by King Alfred the Great around the time of the first Viking raid at Lindisfarne. A string of Anglo-Saxon kings who converted to Christianity, spoke English, and defined England, eventually fought the Scots, the Celts, the Danes, the Norwegians, and other groups who tried to control the island. However, in 1066, William the Conqueror, a Norman Viking who'd been given land in France, invaded England. He and his army attacked across the English Channel at Hastings and defeated King Harold, becoming King of England and merging French, Viking, and English cultures together. Anglo-Saxon nobility began to speak French, and the commoners only spoke English. William developed a census known as the Domesday Book, a court system, and a tax code. Later, King Henry II would create English common law to replace disorganized local codes. His son John would sign the Magna Carta, creating limited rule of the kings. King Henry also said that he had the right to try priests who committed civil crimes. Archbishop Thomas Becket disagreed on many actions of the king, and Henry had him killed by 4 knights at church. The public anger forced Henry to back off. The public checking the king endures in England. Henry's family squabbles turned to rebellion as his sons Richard, John, Henry the Younger, and Geoffrey turned on each other. Often these fights were urged by the French king Philip II and Henry's French wife Eleanor. The Pope often intervened as well. Eventually, Richard ruled during the Crusades. Other kings of England met the anger of popular will when they also tried to rule without limits. The Magna Carta, signed in 1215, would grant the rights of habeas corpus, the power of the purse, and limit the rights of the king. Eventually, King Edward I helped to create a parliament, which gave the people the right to voice their concerns in 2 houses of legislature. Then, the Cold War against the French turned hot in the 100 Years' War. The House of York and the House of Lancaster battled for control of the crown after the 100 Years' War and during the Black Death in the War of the Roses, much of which is written about by Shakespeare, and some would argue in the allegory that is Alice in Wonderland. The war raged until Henry Tudor married Elisabeth of York, killing Richard III, naming himself Henry VII, the first Tudor king.